Welcome back. So we've finished up now with how to read the fat breakdown, and we're going to move to the next section of this gigantic report that is your 3-day average, and we're going to look at the MyPlate analysis report. Here again, we've got the name of our section, we've got the days that we are looking at to remind us, and this is probably a good place for me to remind you that anytime you see more than one date on a report, or on a section of a report, it means that the computer has taken all of your 3 days. It has added all those numbers up and it has divided by 3. It's done the averaging for you. So you can look at this as though it is a single day. It's no one day, right? I didn't get 1,900 and whatever calories it was on every single day. What I got fluctuated, but my average was that 1,903. Okay, so that said, we're going back to that same general format where the first column gives us our categories. In this case, we're looking at now food and not nutrients. Here they're using the word goal instead of recommendation or instead of RDA, RDI. Sorry, DRI. Too many initials. But main idea is this is what I'm supposed to be striving for. Okay, and I'll come back to those units in a second. If you find yourself with bad numbers, you can click on any one of these tips number, and it's going to take you out to a website that gives you some ideas about how to make better choices about this particular food group. You can also read in chapter 2, of course, in your textbook. They've got some of the same information. Just a little note, textbooks have a publication date. And if you look at yours, it's a couple of years old now. If you want the most recent information, you're probably going to click on these tips because that's going to take you to the USDA website, much more up to date. Okay, so we have our recommendation or our goal. Then we have our actual, which is what the computer has calculated based on what I told it I ate. And then again, we're back to this idea of a grade, right? So if you look at this, I've got a really nice grade for grains, a really nice grade for vegetables. Not a perfect grade for fruit. High grade for dairy, high grade for protein, and you're going to get into what these are with your instructor. I'm not getting into them. The one thing I do want to draw your attention to is this last category called empty calories. Some of you guys probably know that there are foods that have calories that don't provide a lot of nutrients. Candy, soda, chips, Pop-Tarts, right? Those are the butter. Those are the things we're going to call empty calories. And notice, I actually am allowed some empty calories. The USDA is not assuming that my goal is to have a diet with no, what we call fun in it, right? But I am supposed to limit it. And you'll notice that I actually did not limit it. Here's most definitely a situation where you would not want any quote unquote extra credit, because those are extra calories that did not help you out nutritionally. You're going to see with your instructor that the brand new dietary guidelines for 2020 have a kind of a tagline with them that says, make every bite count, meaning minimize those empty calories. If you're going to eat food, make sure there's some nutrient in there, not just calories. Okay, now, these units, they're some of them are hard to visualize. Cups you can kind of visualize, right? Fruits, vegetables, and dairy, they're all listed in cups. So a cup is a cup, right? Now, that said, when we say a cup in this context, we don't mean any old coffee cup in your cabinet. We mean a measuring cup. We mean 8 fluid ounces. Your instructor is going to give you some information about how to visualize that. The easiest way for me, because I'm old enough to remember this, and maybe some of you guys do, when you went to elementary school and you went to lunch and they gave you that little paper carton of milk, that's a cup in the sense that this is a cup. Okay? Grains and protein are measured in ounces, which is a weight measurement. Little harder to visualize. Again, you're going to get some of this from your instructor, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail now. This EQ stands for equivalent because some things we don't exactly measure in ounces. I'll give you one example. So don't make a big deal of it, just so you know what EQ is, why it's there. For protein foods, if we're talking about meat, we are talking about ounces. But many of you might know that it's not just meat that goes in the protein group, also goes in there things like beans. Well, we don't measure beans in ounces. We measure them in cups. And then we equate them or make an equivalence back to the ounces of meat. So that's all the EQ means, is that in some cases within that group, you're not going to measure in ounces or cups. You're going to measure somehow else, and then you're going to equivalate. That's not a word. You're going to equate back or make an equivalence back to the ounce or the cup. Before we leave this report, I want to draw your attention to some really important information down here. You're going to learn in Chapter 2 that not all these food groups have items in them that are interchangeable completely. The biggest examples are the vegetable group, the grain group, and the protein group, right? For grains, I think this is probably too conservative. Half your grains be whole grains. I think you should probably do as much of your grains as you can possibly do as whole grains. More on that from your instructor. Vegetables, you're going to see we divide up into groups. Why? Because we get different nutrients from different vegetables, right? Dark green leafy vegetables give us one set of nutrients. Bright kale, collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, spinach, chard, broccoli, they give us one set of nutrients. Pumpkin, carrot, sweet potato, winter squash, those orange vegetables, they give us a different set of nutrients, and so on with the other categories. And then the last thing is protein. It's become clear now after probably 60 or 70 years of research that relying on meat, and when I say meat, I'm including poultry, meat and poultry, relying on those as your sole source of protein sets you up for a higher risk of chronic diseases. And that includes both heart disease and cancer, certain cancers. So we try to break those up and say, try minimally, get some fish every week and do some kind of vegetarian protein every week. Not to say everybody needs to be a vegetarian, but everybody should live like a vegetarian, maybe a day or two a week. Okay, so we'll take a couple-minute break. Well, I'm going to close the video. You'll take a few minutes and take a look at your MyPlate analysis, and I will meet you back here for the very last video.